Okay, we will call this meeting to order for December 5th, the Agenda and Priorities meeting, and I will ask Councillor Hystad to read the land acknowledgement this week, please.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederation, Kenai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, with the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the tradition knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, and those have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside. Apologize for that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hystad. And we'll move on to 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions? No? Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hystad. All in favor? Or what did I say? Hystad, I'm sorry. Bates, whoever you are. Yeah, Councillor Bates. And we'll move on to 3.1 budget deliberations with CAO Becker.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Hello, Council. Just putting this item on the agenda just to give you another chance to talk or massage budget prior to it being formally presented to you, Council, next Monday, with the hopes of having the budgets adopted. As the report reads, Council received some information from administration on November 24th, 25th, and half day on the 29th regarding the operational capital budgets. The deliberations began reviewing our just basics of our strat plan, including the vision and mission and values and the 4 pillars of the strat plan. Administration asked you to consider the objectives of the budget, being that to advance council's strategic priorities, to provide high quality municipal services valued by the residents, to maintain competitive property taxes, and to protect the organizational health. Administration is just giving you opportunity to flesh out anything outstanding items as it comes to you next Monday. Again, it's really your perspective that matters, but certainly would like to give you my perspective in relation to my experience with the 2023 budget. The budget is reflective of the 2020 Citizen Satisfaction Survey and the key agenda items, including economy, community safety, and infrastructure. The town has limited funding tools. We know the primary revenue source being taxes. There's debt financing model incorporated into the budget for a future debenture for a major recreation facility. General benchmark comparisons are showing municipalities are stressed and are looking at what we would consider non-traditional tax increases, is which is also presented to you in the 2023 budget. Some of the immediate identified budget impacts increases include that of the RCMP increase, fire services staffing level increase, increase in dedication to reserves, utility rate increases, maintain the momentum of the economic development initiatives, increased natural gas and electricity charges, parks, utilities, summer staffing levels, a COLA increase, increased legal services. From my perspective, the 2023 budget does align with Council's strategic planning documents in areas of increasing recreational opportunities, focusing on the health, safety, and well-being of the residents, and focus on community spirit. There are currently work plans in play in relation to housing, and we'll hear more about that later on the agenda in the in-camera side. More specifically, the town's economic condition may see significant advancements due to the current interest in the industrial park development and the actions associated with the economic development strategy. So again, just providing my perspective, Mayor and Council. Again, it's your perspective that matters, and if there's any questions regarding budgets, unfortunately our Director of Corporate Services is not able to be here to get into any number specifics, but certainly we can pull that information and research that prior to next Monday and answer any questions now and into next Monday.
Okay, thank you, CEO Becker. So does anybody have any questions or any comments that around the budget, because this is your chance? before we hit next Monday, as CEO Becker said. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I'd just like to say that last week, the last 3 days, we spent a lot of time deliberating, discussing, debating, and I'm quite happy with what's been presented so far. So I fully support the budget that it's going to be presented on December the 12th.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. I had a question, Director Kennedy, to you, and about Cannon Park and the playground. And I'm curious your thoughts around, like in this day and age, should we be building something that is not accessible? And I'm assuming that accessibility adds quite a bit of cost, but would there be grants available maybe from Rick Hansen Foundation or something else? But just a thought. I was mentioning to CEO Becker, I saw a video on the weekend of a young lady. She's a sledge hockey player, and she's coming off the ice and having to go to the dressing room, and she had to go up 4 stairs to get to the dressing room, and like it was not good, and so those are just my thoughts, but not sure what you think of that.
It's interesting because we were just having a discussion about the playgrounds and kind of how we look at replacing and upgrading as we move these playgrounds along here. Cannon Park in particular, right now it's a pea gravel surface, so it's not accessible. So what the intent could be with our proposals is looking at 2 options. One, doing the replacement with what was there, with what is a equivalent replacement, and then what would be a second option, be it accessible, and what does those costs include? Because really it comes down to it's the surface. The surface is very expensive. Like it was close to an $80,000, I think, hit at the last playground that we had. So we do lose a lot of features once you start adding that protective surface into it, but it's definitely something we can look at in consideration in our RFPs, and that's part of going with an RFP is come back to you with, here's a couple options that we have, and maybe get some direction.
Thanks, Director Kennedy. So does the surface, was that part of the playground itself, like kind of part of the whole package, or is that something you do separately?
We include it in the package so that it's kind of an all-in-one, so that it's very clear on what structures we can include in the budget with the surface.
Yep. Okay, no, thank you. Anything else? Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I do have one question. I don't recall us discussing the loan that we have for the industrial services. And when I read the paper last week, it indicated that we hadn't locked in on that yet. I thought we had locked in on it at the rates that were being discussed at the time when I was objecting to the principal not being part of it. And if we haven't, what capacity? Because we've had 2 at least big and we're going to have another one this week. What capacity I don't know what we've got budgeted, what it gives us capacity to borrow.
Mayor Barkley, Councillor Bates, and please, SLT if you, something I'm not quite understanding, but right now we have not locked in. You have not approved a debenture. Right now, the future debenture, as we materialize that, we being you, it's anticipated that it'll be covered through the land sales and through the land reserve.
So I kind of, I understood where the money would potentially come from, but there still has to be some budget, and I am surprised because I thought we were pushing it at that time to try and catch one of the anniversaries of where I think it was a 1st of September type, and I can't remember.
Yeah, my understanding is it was December by the time it got to Edmonton and back, and we also talked about maybe looking at other avenues of financing outside of the government of Alberta, where...
Anyway, I did not get that back then, and so maybe next week we could at least know what our capacity with this budget, what our capacity of the loan would be. Would it be the whole the whole thing at whatever projected interest rate that we will see, because like I say, I think we're gonna see another one this week. Thank you.
I thought we spoke about this in the budget, correct? Like we talked about a 10-year
There was a
loan and.
reference, yeah.
Yeah, and the 3-month interest penalty if we got a mortgage, and so we talked about maybe doing a line of credit instead, or looking down into that avenue of that, so. And the comments you see in the paper, just remember they're always a week delayed or so, because it's just when the paper comes out, so.
No, my point was as a counselor, missed the concept that I thought were locking in back in September.
So Mayor Barkley, Councillor Bates will certainly provide clarity to you next Monday.
So just looking at the RFD that we brought to council back in April, the timelines that we had posted here were loan issue dates, the earliest, just through the process that we have to follow, the earliest would have been December 15th.
No, thank you. I thought it was September. Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Heistan?
Yeah, I know that we're down a couple counselors today, and I think it's good that we've brought it forward, but I'm going to reserve any of my comments until the 12th for budget, just to finalize things. But no, I thought the process was good. There's there's always a couple key pieces that my perspective. I think that, I had questioned, and I'm going to wait until the 12th before we have everybody in the room before I make my decision. Thanks.
So is there something you want to bring up today so that maybe the staff could be
I think
prepared
that,
for next Monday?
you know what, for myself, the parks, Cannon Park and Max Park, I know those Max Park, I believe, was a priority at one time. Cannon Park, and then we had a presentation from the schools, and the discussion was about accessibility. I think it was accessibility, and we have a new playground down at the arenas that's accessible, of course, but if I'm looking at the community, most of the kids are going to school, and I do think it's kind of at the 11th hour when the schools come in to present to us. But it may be a better opportunity for us to partner with them, with those parks, than even building the ones in Max and Cannon Park. Those are just my thoughts right now. I know it's late in the game, and sometimes that can be a game changer. But I think when I look at the kids and the accessibility for them at school, it's easier for them to utilize a park at the school sites. So those are my comments for now. Thanks.
So would Director Kennedy Seelbecker, do you want to comment? Like, do you do, I don't know, kind of a playground review, I guess? Like and I'm not saying not to do the school, but I drive by there, I see four structures now where Cannon Park has nothing. So is that a priority, or is an area of town where we have nothing a priority? I guess that would, do we look at that at all, and condition of things? And
Yeah, Mayor Barkley, so we do look at assessments, so we assess our playgrounds every year. So really, we base our decisions on replacement. So we don't look at we don't necessarily go out to survey the need for the playgrounds, but we do look at the condition of the playgrounds and then base our priority for replacement based on those inspections.
Seelbecker?
And just, it's really up to council. You had a delegation looking for support. It'd be up to council how and when you wish to consider that. Our focus has been on the ones that we municipally operate and maintain.
Councillor Bates?
Well, it's just my opinion. I don't think we should abandon our satellite parks. I'm not saying one versus the other, but I think we have to maintain some satellite parks in the town and then deal with that request, in my opinion.
I think you said too, the max was a carryover, correct, from the prior year, so it's still going forward and,
Correct, yeah, it was just a carryover, so again, priority-wise, Max was the highest priority, Cannon's next on the list. Very similar to other projects that, you know, we can definitely recommend priority, and then we just kind of go from there.
yep, okay, thank you. Councillor Wing?
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. I don't require any further information. I'll be ready to vote next week, so thanks.
Okay. Then I would just ask that somebody please make a motion that we, the recommended motion, that we accept this for information.
I so move the council initiates discussion and works towards a vision for the 2023 budget.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, and we will move on to 3.2 strategic priorities with CAO Becker.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. Just, I'm going to introduce an exercise to council. It's, again, you can totally throw it out the window, but it's a way to move into your immediate priorities and next. And the priorities and what we did is provide a survey to you. There's 16 items that but again, it's you. I identify 16 priorities of the listing of your now and your next priorities. And again, there could be some missing, some that you may want to take off. But we thought, let's try a survey. And at your discretion, you can survey out. And we suggested 8. Let's move in towards 8, but we're going to show you the result of that survey. And actually, we came up with 10. So you can see 10 on the wall, not 8, due to the numbers, and there's some ties, for example. So this is not a science. This is not a mechanism that's so procedured out that this is how we do it. This is your ability to give you some tools to select your immediate priorities. When I say your immediate priorities, it's based on the discussions we've had and heard. But even though the now priorities will be identified, the next priorities are already being worked on. So it just helps us create what are your immediate focus is here. 3 to 4 to 5 immediate priorities. Around 3 would be ideal. But we're also massaging the other ones, and that's currently happening right now. But due to our schedules and the busyness and all the other factors that play in and what we do, we just needed some guidance of what are the immediate priorities. So again, the intent of this is to kind of, how does the priorities tie into your strat plan? And it's really to look at the non-core services. So when I say that, the service inventory, we're not looking at the services itself. We're not looking at capital projects so much. It is, what are these pieces that we play in with our immediate budget? So some areas where you don't need additional budget. For example, the economic development strategy, although we have some dollars in the budget for an interim EDO or municipal intern, that's a budgetary impact, but some of the actions associated with the ECDEV strategy are more in budget that's already built in. So the idea is, let's go through the survey and take a look at it, what's lying right now based on that survey, and let's break it down once more and confirm your immediate now into next. The idea is then to place your immediate now and next on that template that I provided to you. It'll build into the administrative side of the priorities to help making sure your priorities are being achieved with the ones that are developed by administration. And we'll look at this formally quarterly, that, okay, what is our priorities right now and what's next? So we're going to look at this, we're going to fill this in following this exercise. And you're going to see this twice a month, and we'll give you updates, but we'll review it formally quarterly because additional priorities may come into play. So we're going to come back to this, but first let's start with a survey, and we'll just show you the results of that survey. So from the feedback that you provided, Council, the reserves policy is coming out as one of your top priorities, followed by the community safety and wellness plan, the Southwest Commercial and Residential Planning Exercise, investment policy, sustainability master plan, energy hub regarding the summit, energy hub waste and heat, the Burmy, tax policy review, and on. So I'll just let you kind of look at that and absorb the charts on the right as well as the graph on the left, and then we can go from there. Okay, so it's just a comment on a couple things. So, no, can you leave that up, please? So in relation to the reserves policy, so it's not a big administrative process to develop a reserves policy. So administration has started a process, but for this exercise, the reserves policy and the investment policy, they're in play. So they're going to come to you first quarter. But I told. Okay, I'll just leave these on here. It's going to demonstrate how this really works. So although it's your highest priority, they're in play, and they're not a big administrative process really to do this. The tax policy review that's a big, probably 8 months to 10 months process to go through a tax policy on where do we want to see our tax policy, what that should look like. Does this make sense? So what we're going to ask you to do now is to break this down further. So basically, we're going to revisit this. Let's take your from 12, and now it's supposed to be 8, but we're going to go down to 10. So let's go around the room here. The blue, your red is now, and your blue is next. And we're asking council to consider going around and confirm your priorities based on what you believe should be the priority.
So Todd, can you, or CEO Becker, I'm sorry, can you explain just a couple of things? So like Barma is on here. So if we say, I mean, Barma's kind of in play already. So when we say, oh, that's a priority, if we did, like what does that mean to you in administration? Does that mean, okay, it's time for us, we've kind of left it up to them, primarily. So does that mean, okay, let's pull this in a little bit and deploy some strategy as to supporting Barma in communicating with other municipalities in the area to get this thing kind of either going forward or not?
Right, so that's a really good example. At Barclay, so Barmy Energy, you made it a priority. We need time. So if this is the idea of this exercise, if you want everything to be a priority, I don't have time for Barmy. So if you want Varmy to happen and we want to explore Varmy, I need to be able to, Councillor Wing, sorry, do you have any questions? I need time to engage with Varmy. I need to be able to engage with municipalities. I need to engage with government perhaps. Right now, we're touching it, but not very, very much. So the risk is that Varmy's not, if we're not supporting the potential for their development here, then they may go somewhere else that is getting the support from their administration and council.
And then like with the community economic development entity, I think just so everybody understands, that's in the community economic development strategy in year 3. So that was actually taking community economic development from the town of Innisfail and putting it into an external organization. So I just don't want people to think that is not doing community economic development, right? Like we're still doing that, but that entity was kind of a future piece that group, the advisory group, was looking at some point in time. So,
so
just kind of
if
explain
you said
some of that.
Varmy is your highest priority, say you agree it's amongst council, it's one of your highest priorities, then I'm going to take it back to my administrative team. Okay, let's develop the strategy. What do we need to do? So I'll engage John Collins, which I am this week. What do you need? And what do we need to do our due diligence? Right now, We are relying on Varmy, whether it's a lease or a land purchase. But I am responsible to advise you with agreements that would be associated with a land deal. What is the environmental impact? What is the legislative components to this deal? I need time to be able to do this due diligence, and I'll probably require the assistance of the directors. But if all these others are your highest priority too, then I'm just doing small touches on all your priorities.
And then with the community safety, or the Southwest Commercial and Residential, so if that was a top priority, like, tell us about what that means to you as well.
Yeah, so I don't want to take away your priority. So what I'm hoping today is you pick your priorities, like today. And once we hear that, we'll take it away, and then we'll flesh that out. So Southwest Commercial, what does that mean? Is likelihood, we need to develop a process to give you concept plans, drafts, likely be a public engagement component, but we have not fleshed that out. So I'd say get into your priorities, we'll take it away over the next week or two, and what does that mean for us, and what's the time period that we anticipate to do that priority?
Well, and this is a discussion I kind of wish we'd had before we did this, but, and certainly as I did the exercise, the priority exercise, I struggled with that, how much work is each one to you guys? Because to me, like the reserves policy development, making it to the top, I think it has to, because we only have them once if we choose to use them in different ways. But how much work is that compared to VARM? That's what goes on in my head. I don't see them being comparable even in the amount of work. I think, yeah. So,
Yeah, and
but I'm willing to
so today
follow the
is-
rules, put up the, thank you.
Yeah, it's not concluded today. This is an ongoing live process forever. So today is just, let's zone in, let's focus. Hey, we need to make this highest priority. And we'll put that on your chart, we'll take it away. Okay, now let's flush this out administration. The Varmy could be 2 years. It could be 6 months of high engagement of the CAO, which is taking away other priorities, and potentially the team. So yeah, it depends. But if it's on workload, but I'd just go with what do you want to happen as your immediate priorities right now.
Councillor Harrison?
Thanks. Through to CEO Becker. Well, you'll come back after you strategize with your leadership team as to maybe Varmy is a year, the tax policy review is 8 months. You'll come back with those numbers to give us some kind of idea of where Councillor Bates, the questions that he's asking, right?
Totally, absolutely.
I would think so.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Your worship. We just have 3 blue, 3 red, right? Just want to make sure. I don't know. Bates, could see him cheating.
So-
Thanks.
Yeah. So again, this is a live exercise, so this does not end. So external, internal factors may say, no, we need to get on this right now. And some of the pieces with EFL, Energy's Futures Lab, is they're only here for a period of time, then they're gonna disappear. So, you know, I'd recommend we need to keep massaging those initiatives. And you'll see, you saw through Megan's email, I think that went out to all council. So there's some work being done. You're gonna see another email soon, some of you anyway, on another initiative. So we're gonna continue building on that, but to understand that the now is really important for us to really focus. So we'll tally this, we'll come back to you in this format as early as next Monday, if not on the 15th. 12th. In mid-December, they'll come back mid-December.
Yeah.
So is there any questions, concerns with this? And again, it's not a science, it's just some exercise to get you to speak to your priorities. Any questions, concerns?
Councillor Heistan?
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say, I said it earlier when I started on with this team, is that I'd hope that, and I trust the CEO and the directors, just tell us when we're throwing too much at you. I think that's the balance that I'm getting from this process. So, no, but sometimes administration, I've worked long enough where administrations don't tell you when it's like we're drinking from the fire hose. So I like this exercise, and I look forward to having Cindy and Dale in the room too. Thanks.
Mayor Barkley, I can comment.
Yes, please.
Actually, we are our worst nightmare too. We're driven. We want to drink from the hose. To be honest with you, we're kind of driven that way. But in combination, we're both, everybody's drinking from the hose, and then we're creating strain for you, because we're not going to achieve your objectives and priorities, and for us, we'll burn out. So again, that momentum, that energy is still going to be applied. We're still going to go hard. This is not a means to put on idle and become complacent. That's not who we represent. So I appreciate those comments.
Any other discussion? No? Okay. So with this motion, CEO Becker, like it says, council approves the strategic priorities. Are we approving anything?
I'd suggest not, Mayor Barkley.
Okay.
Seeing it now,
think so.
I think we should map this out
Yeah.
and see what it looks like, and then you can consider approving it. And you may look at it and say, no, we're missing something here. So we'll come back to you in a week or two.
Yeah, like the others that aren't there, like, there's no sheet up with others, so if that other was up on a sheet, like SEEP or something like that, would that come into play, right? Where,
The others in this case, and I should have mentioned, was housing and IPD, Aquatic Center.
okay,
Yeah. So IPD is coming to you
okay,
soon, first quarter. You're gonna see it in draft soon, and then looking for you to consider it first quarter of 2023.
okay, perfect, okay.
Housing, again, it'll be up to you if something missing specifically to housing besides what's being done now. So we'll look for council's guidance in regarding that topic. Right now, there's some municipal development plan, and it looks like southwest corner is high priority. So, but anything else, but looking for council's guidance.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, so we will just move on then.
Sure.
Okay, then we will go to Director Jenkins, 3.3, on facility sponsorship rates.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Just looking to provide an overview to council of some of our current and proposed advertising rates within our facilities prior to inclusion in an upcoming update to the rates and fees bylaw, which I believe is going to come next Monday. We do have a limited number of opportunities for private advertising or sponsorship within our facilities. To date, advertising exists on the arena boards, ice resurfacer, and garbage receptacles at the skate park. We have identified some opportunities as well as received some inquiries. And the last little while, we've essentially been bringing those one at a time to council for approval of the rates and the advertisers. So the table in the RFD outlines what we're looking to propose right now. Just a note on the rink board advertising. So rink board advertising is currently $400. We are proposing an increase for 2023. As far back as I could look, going to 2013, they've been at that $400 rate. So that would be an increase. And then as per our advertising policy, being able to put this out publicly in the bylaw allows us to be fair and equitable as opposed to just responding when people come and request. So potentially some new opportunities that we could start to promote, which would support revenue generation. Some big ones being ball diamonds, tennis courts, the washroom stalls, again, the ice arena. We did do the center ice logo this year in the blue arena with the Eagles, but our staff is getting better and better with the in-ice logos and looking at the potential to have those offered both in the red side as part of that process. So yeah, open for any questions. And if not, we would accept as information and we'll include it with the next rates and fee bylaw process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Director Jenkins. Anybody have any questions about this? No, everybody's happy about it. Oh, Councillor Bates.
God, I have a question. Are the stair risers that are referred to, where are those?
When you come into the blue ice, there's the set of stairs that goes up, so there's about
first
10
set.
of them there. And then as you turn the corner, there's potentially another set. Basically, they're just the stickers that go along the front side of the stairs. And that is one that actually prompted this in terms of having some people ask about it.
Okay.
So,
And comment, the ice resurfacer annual per side,
yep,
I think it's done right now,
yes,
but there's also the top, and it looks to me like it's done right in the sense that the side, the one sponsor has the top and the
and the
side,
correct.
and that's, in my mind, equivalent to the other single side because of the direction it travels. It comes up really close to the crowd on the one side, so you get good coverage there that to me is equal to the top and the other side.
It's actually, so the top is 1,500, the side is 1,500, and the
Oh,
other side
so
is
we got
1,500,
three.
so there's 3 spots on that,
Okay, so-
on the ice resurfacer. Yeah,
Okay, but that's, yeah, so we got one more than what's on here. I only see side per side.
for all,
I guess if
The
you call the
top.
top a side.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay, then I'll please have somebody make a motion to accept this as information. Anybody?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And we'll move on to 3.4 and the Pace Bus operations with Director Jenkins.
Okay, so wanted to give council an opportunity to have a bit of a discussion around the Pace Transit service as we look to evaluate some different approaches as we move ahead with moving on from the Legion providing the operations of that service. So just looking to talk with council about some of the values, some of the thoughts, even anecdotally, what kind of sort of service values. I've heard a few sort of concerns about different, whether we went a contractor option in how that service would continue to be operated, as well as what some of the thoughts are for the future. I guess my understanding historically, this has been a service that has evolved over time, sort of being that direct accessible bus, whether we want to move towards more of a transit transportation type of service, with that on-demand access. Yeah, so I guess just really wanted to open the floor and see if council wanted to use this opportunity to put out some of their thoughts as we move ahead. In January, we'll be coming back to you with sort of a more in detailed analysis of whether we want to look at a contracted service or figure out how that would work as an internal operation.
Thanks, Director Jenkins. I'm very much for keeping it internal. It worries me going to a contracted service that we lose control and maybe we don't have the service that we were hoping for. I'm also wondering if you can look into, or if you have looked into, like FCM and, there's transportation grants and whether that is applicable in a small community like ours. Talk more about it in roundtable, but we had a meeting last week with AHS EMS, and there may be some opportunities there to some uptake on usage of our handy vans through that organization going forward. So those are my thoughts. Councillor Harrison? I'm going to ask everybody what your thoughts are about this so that we have some discussion, okay? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Mayor Barkley, the number of trips and no, my light wasn't on. In both ways and more than ways than one. Yeah, no. Yeah. I would agree that if we can keep it internal, I would certainly like to see that. For those reasons, I echo those comments from Mayor Barkley. And with the existing cadre of drivers and dispatchers that we have now in place, they pretty much look after their own. They do the bookings, they take the reservations, they look after all of that. So I don't see a big onus on, other than just quality control on the town. I don't think you need, or we need to hire any additional people. I think the drivers now can certainly handle that. I do, and we have had requests in the past for trips to Edmonton. And we've sort of taken those one-offs, and we took the liberty to charge, I think it was $350 return trip to Edmonton. There are residents that their specialists are in Edmonton. They have to get up there. So I would suggest that we may look at a rate for Edmonton. But yeah, those would be my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wing?
A question. So the way it's operated in the past, have the drivers and the administrator been employees of the Legion or employees of the town of the Legion? So that's going to switch over to the town. So I would imagine there'll be an increased administrative fee. So I'm wondering, when I'm looking at the return trip to Calgary, we're basing our mileage on Government of Alberta rates then?
To be perfectly honest, I don't know what that rate is based on. I think it's generally on the per hour rate, when you calculate the costs is what they've looked at. I just wonder if that's an accessible rate for just the average citizen, or whether there are some other rates that we could use as comparators to say, yeah, the Government of Alberta's got deep pockets, but what's industry using when they're reimbursing employees for using their own vehicles? Thank you.
I believe, Mayor Barkley, through to Councillor Wing, these rates have evolved over the years based on fuel prices, wages, and they've just, sort of a best guess. And it's come before the Transportation Committee being reviewed, and I believe they've come to council in the past. So I think there's been a lot of diligence and scrutiny around the rates. As far as government rates, I don't think it's anywhere near the government rate. The government, I don't know. Government rate, I don't think they have one for buses. I could be wrong, but I know in your private vehicle, what is it now, 61 cents or something per kilometer? So, a return rate from, Bowden, $25, what's that, 12 kilometers? It's not. And I know these buses, it takes more than 12 cents or 61 cents a kilometer to operate with insurance and everything, so.
Sure. $250 return would have been about the rate for Red Deer to Calgary to the limit, the city limits kind of thing, like, it's
Okay,
coming out of my past employer
Okay.
2 years ago, so.
So we're close there at
Yeah.
250.
Right, that's
per-
what I'm looking at, was actually the
okay.
Calgary, the
Yeah.
larger trips,
Yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
people that have to go to
Yeah.
the specialist once or twice or
Yeah.
3 times a month or whatever, that's a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, question on that, is there also a surcharge, well, you might know Councillor Harrison or Director Jenkins, you know, the time spent at the location? I mean, quite often, if you're going in, it might be a 3 hours as you sit and wait for somebody.
Not an additional charge, Mayor Barclay. It's, of course, the drivers would get their hourly rate. The only additional charge was for the community bus, the large bus. That driver got a per hour rate if they were longer than, I believe it was 3 hours or something like
Yeah,
that.
and as per the agreement, it was based on a 2-hour wait time is what the ideal is. I'm not sure in practice if that's how it always happened.
And do you remember, Director Jenkins, unfair question, I know out of the blue, but do you remember how much we paid the Legion to operate this?
So
the top of
it's,
your head.
the annual requisition to the Legion is 88,000.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's based on the operating hours there. And then I'm not sure if there was a minimum for these longer trips, if they had to book a certain amount out, or if it was just if they were available. Like if we had to go to Calgary, if they had to book a week in advance, or,
If they knew, if they had a specialist appointment that they knew of, they could book whenever. If there was like a cancellation, for example, and they had to get there within 24 hours, medical took priority over everything else. If it was a medical trip or an appointment, they got number one priority.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bates?
Well, just going my turn, right? So no, I'm assuming that a lot of this was all hashed out by the communication, or by the Transportation Committee, and obviously, yeah, I don't think you can compare these buses to a passenger vehicle. I mean, at some point, it comes back to cost, and we have to decide how much is subsidized by the taxpayers of Innisfail. One question I do have is, if the Legion, when they were running it, I would assume that if I wanted to book something, I kind of phoned the Legion. If the drivers and so if I want to book something on an off hour, how do I do it? That would come to my mind.
Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to Councillor Bates. The way the lead driver of the team, he carries his phone 24/7, and it's all coordinated through his cell phone. There's a program called Google Calendar, I think it is, and he enters it in there, and each driver has that same program on their Pace Bus phone, so they all know instantaneously when he puts that in. So I guess the short answer is he does all the bookings, and even when they call the Legion to the front office there, we refer him to our lead driver there who does the bookings. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Heinstead?
Yeah, no, of course, I want to see this in-house, and I want to thank administration for the information for now, and I'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay. CEO Becker?
Just to Director Jenkins, so the next step would be to develop the business case, make it more specifically to what the comparable services could provide. So even give you, to do due diligence, still look at the external versus internal with more detail, just to help confirm your vision.
Okay, I will have someone make a motion, please, that we accept this as information.
I'd so move the council accepts this report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor? Okay, unanimous, and we will move on to 3.5 with Manager Shaw and the legal non-conforming uses in districts. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So I'm coming to you this afternoon to talk about a matter related to our land use bylaw and in particular to some residential districts. And hopefully by the conclusion of this, you'll be much more intelligent with regard to legal non-conforming uses, or I will totally have confused you altogether. So the matter at hand, over the years, Innisfail has, of course, adopted many land use bylaws. They've done land use amendments. They've blended some districts together. And so over the course of those amendments and adoptions, some land uses may have been incorporated under earlier bylaws, but then weren't incorporated under the newest bylaws. So we have a situation with the current bylaw where within the R3 district, the multifamily district, you had detached dwellings and duplexes as discretionary uses under earlier bylaws. When the new bylaw was adopted back in 2009, these were still listed as discretionary uses, but indicated as existing at the time of the land use bylaw was adopted. So, all well and good. However, now the situation becomes, well, what happens to a land use which is recognized in the district, but does not necessarily comply with that particular district, particularly if it's damaged above its foundation. Right now, we don't have the mechanism to be able to have landowners be able to rebuild their structure above the foundation if it's more than 75% destroyed. What would have to happen is that the landowner would have to construct something that is listed within the district's uses. In the case of the R3, that could be an apartment, a fourplex, stacked row housing, that kind of thing. But they wouldn't be able to rebuild a detached dwelling or a duplex. And so this is the dilemma that we face for landowners within this particular district, but also within the residential transition district. Apartments were not considered under that when the district, or when that particular district was created. There's no use for an apartment in a permitted or discretionary use. So that means that if something were to happen to any existing apartments, we would have no recourse with respect to granting approval for a new apartment building on that particular property. So what we're trying to do with this report that you have before you is to come up with a mechanism that would allow us to be able to address these types of situations. And that's the crux of the matter here is trying to deal with that legal non-conforming use as identified within the MGA as well as the land use bylaw. So we did prepare a fairly extensive PowerPoint presentation for you that goes through this particular issue. And Kara, if you want to bring that up. Okay, you want to go to the second slide? So just as a point of interest, the house that you see there doesn't exist in Innisfail. It's just a Google image. So it's basically just to give you a place marker, so to speak. So as I indicated, we have had a number of land use bylaws over the years, as well as land use amendments. these changes resulted in some uses being now classified as legal non-conforming uses. And we know that home does represent a very significant investment by homeowners, and of course, then trying to deal with one that is affected by loss becomes even more problematic. So that's what we're trying to address here, okay? So the legal non-conforming use, well, the MGA does describe it. It means a lawful specific use being made of land or a building or intended to be made of a building lawfully under construction at the date a land use bylaw affecting the land or building becomes effective, and that on the date the land use bylaw becomes effective does not, or in the case of building under construction, will not comply with the land use bylaw. Our land use bylaw has very similar type of language. It's being made of land or a building or intended to be made of a building lawfully under construction at the date the land use bylaw affecting the land or building becomes effective. And that on the date the land use bylaw becomes effective does not, or in the case of a building under construction, will not comply with the land use bylaw. Okay. So basically, this just helps to explain a little bit more in terms of philosophy in dealing with land use issues and trying to find a balance between landowners' rights and society's desires and dealings with land. Okay. So MGA and land use bylaw are quite explicit when it does come to the continued existence of a legal non-conforming use. It can continue, however, if something happens to it to where more than 75% of the value above the foundation is lost, then it can't be repaired or rebuilt except in accordance with the land use bylaw. So without the proposed amendments, the existing land use, non-conforming uses can't be rebuilt, not even with the variance power established by the land use bylaw for the development authority or for the subdivision and development appeal board. So that's why it's important to now look at how can we truly deal with this particular issue to make sure that if something does happen to a property in districts where they're identified as a legal non-conforming use, we can find a mechanism to be able to deal with that. So for example, under the R3 district, we have over 80 properties where there are detached homes on the property, and we have over 50 properties that have duplexes located within the R3 district. The RT, the Residential Transition District, has apartment buildings located within properties when this particular district was established. So go to the next one. So on your left-hand side, the R3 district, you just see an example here where you have duplexes as well as single detached dwellings. And then on the right-hand side, you have the RT district, and you have a couple of apartment buildings located within that district. So these are examples of what are classified as legal non-conforming uses. And then the next slide just shows you the origins of the non-conforming uses within the RT district. We had one bylaw that's merged like R3 lots into the residential transition, and then you had another bylaw adjustment that changed like direct control district into residential transition. And in that particular bylaw, it captured 2 apartment buildings. So what we are suggesting here is create a tool or a mechanism to be able to deal with these legal non-conforming uses that allows the Development Authority, and in this case, it would be the Municipal Planning Commission, authority to be able to review development applications to replace previously approved buildings that have become a legal non-conforming use that is substantially destroyed or damaged above the foundation to more than 75% of the building's value. So there's a wording within the report that identifies here are some of the things that we're going to have to consider when we run across this situation. So it would allow the homeowner to make application for the replacement of their building. The MPC would then have the discretionary power available to be able to review that application and determine whether or not it is appropriate within the district. So it looks at it from a case-by-case basis, but it gives a little bit more, I guess, positive action when it comes to respect to dealing with these kinds of matters. So the wording talks about the foundation, making sure that its integrity hasn't been compromised because of the damage, setback requirements, ensuring that you have safety code approvals, that kind of thing. But it's basically setting up a framework that allows the MPC to review each application on its merits. So in a number of cases, in looking at the R3 district, for example, there's probably a lot of properties that really are not conducive to developing as multifamily, simply because of their width or their depth doesn't allow for a fourplex or an apartment building or row housing or those types of residential type development within them. And so it makes more practical sense to say, all right, we recognize that there is a loss here. Bylaw doesn't necessarily identify that this use is available, but we know that in previous land use bylaws, these were discretionary uses. And so the MPC had the authority to be able to review each application and to ensure that any concerns related to the neighborhood were addressed through their review. And so what you have before you today is that we want to be able to move forward in terms of dealing with the matter and to be able to prepare a bylaw amendment that deals with these particular legal non-conforming uses. So if I haven't confused you any more than what you start out with, then I'll accept any questions from you.
Perfect. Thank you, Manager Shaw. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, through to Manager Shaw. Thank you for the enlightenment here. Sure, it's cleared up things for me.
Okay.
But does this answer the insurance question, which started all of this? Can now this individual or this ratepayer, can he or she go back to the insurance company and say, here's going to be our new bylaw? It still allows us for you to insure me, and I'll still be able to have a really good chance of rebuilding my existing single-family home.
Through the mayor to Councillor Harrison, I believe that this does. We worked this through with our legal counsel, and the wording that we have come up with is wording that should be or should give some satisfaction to insurance companies that the municipality is going to allow the residents to be rebuilt within that particular property. But it may also be up to each individual insurance company to make that determination.
But we'll allow it if it conforms with our existing, yeah, okay. No, I think Thank you very much for doing that. I know it created a lot of angst with that constituent, and hopefully now he or she will be a little calmer. Thank you.
Councillor Bates?
So, yeah, to me, it seems appropriate. One question, just from going through this, how strict is this 75%, or is there some room for interpretation with that too? Because I can imagine that could get to be a bit of a stumbling block.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bates, no, it's set within the MGA, and so you also see that within our land use bylaw. So we have no authority to be able to vary the MGA.
My question though is more like, so if you have a approximately 75% destruction, then I would assume there'll be, you know, depending on the interest of to rebuild, somebody would be, you know, trying to make it appropriate or not, you know, like adding the level of a replacement versus a cheaper alternative or whatever, just to, it just seems like that number is such a rigid number that I'm just wondering if you guys, like how that gets interpreted.
Through the chair to Councillor Bates, I know that 75% has been probably in existence since the Planning Act back from the 70s, and certainly since when the MGA was created back in 95. So it has been around for a very long time.
Okay. No, I just, yeah, thank you.
No, I think that's a good point, and Councillor Harrison as well, like when dealing with insurance companies. So is it 75% of the building value? Like how is the building value being determined? Is it replacement value off the insurance policy? Is it somebody doing an assessment, approximate value? And I think the other thing, going back to what Councillor Harrison said, I'm trying to find like how this could all work, but you know, up to individual insurance companies, so or up to an MPC, somebody says, oh, no, I don't think they should build that kind of a structure there. And I also look back, being a lender at one point in time, you know, you always had to make sure that the loan that you were giving when it was secured by property matched the land use zoning. So, you know, if you had a R1, somebody's getting a mortgage on an R1, but it's in R3 zoning, that's an issue. So, like I'm not sure how, like, is this like a solution that's going to work, do we think? Or are we going to see issues coming up? I guess I look from maybe financial institution or an insurance company who might be saying, well, there's still a possibility that this may not happen because it has to go to the development authority to decide. So those are, and I don't know, I'm just putting it out there for...
Mayor Barkley, when you look at the previous land use bylaws that we had, particularly within the R3, duplexes and single-family homes were discretionary at that time and were approved. I think this particular mechanism gives you an avenue to be able to recover that particular structure on that particular property, whereas we didn't have that before. And like I said, there's quite a number of properties that really are not suitable for more than one dwelling on it. You know, certainly from the standpoint of an apartment building or stack row housing or row housing itself. So that's why, you know, we've tried to create a mechanism to be able to address the 75% loss, as well as the use within a district that is really accommodating multifamily.
So question, Manager Shaw, and this might be a crazy question, but like those properties that you don't think would be suitable to ever build R3 on, like, is it possible to go back to these 130 properties that have been identified, and can you specifically zone them for like R1, R2 and leave, or is it just needing to do more of a zone as opposed to, well, here's 4 properties in a row that we could never build an R3 on there, so let's leave them as an R2, because that's what they are now, or, does that make sense? No.
Certainly, Mayor Barkley, it does
You're
make
being
sense.
kind, yeah.
But then it kind of defeats the idea of having an R3 district and zoning properties within that for multifamily, if you're basically just doing spot zoning within that district itself. Then you have a hodgepodge of either R1s or R1A or that kind of thing within a multifamily type district. So the intent is really, globally we have identified that we believe this particular area should be R3 or whatever district. And so you may have individual pockets of single family within that particular district. But realistically, from a planning standpoint, you want to ensure that you have similar type of design within a particular neighborhood so that you don't have this hodgepodge of zoning within a neighborhood.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I appreciate your expertise very much. Just always, insurance and banks always concern me. Director Jenkins?
I was just gonna reiterate that ideally, these zonings were put in place because the long-term vision is that these neighborhoods will evolve over time. But with this provision being in place to allow for those sort of catastrophic or one-off type of events that aren't gonna render someone's property of a lower value or that they're really out, that investment, the idea is over time, maybe 2 or 3 single-family dwellings, those lots are consolidated and there's a process that over the very long term, it moves in that direction.
No, for sure, thank you. Yeah, you don't want to find out that the residential property is now lot value only. Councillor Bates?
So the other thought that comes to mind, we can't be the only community or municipality that's ever had this problem, so is it safe to assume that you've looked at others and what we're proposing has worked with somebody that's addressed this problem previously?
I guess I can just jump in and say that it's not the first time that the issue has come up. And I think in the past, we could deal with it on a case-by-case basis. If someone came in and said, my house burned down, my insurance company won't do it, council can rezone the property, we can do things, but it doesn't give them the peace of mind on the front end. And it seems that insurance companies are taking more interest in what's allowed and what's not, which is sort of what prompted that RT district, because a large portion of that area was zoned commercial, and people were either having issues getting residential mortgages on properties that were zoned commercial, or same thing, insurance on a home on a property that's zoned for commercial use. So it does seem to be something that insurance companies are maybe paying more and more attention to, that we're getting more inquiries there.
Well, my question was more towards, I don't know if we have a source where we can go to other than that says, this little community or whatever up in northern Alberta had this same problem 3 years ago, and they've done this and it's solved the problem, or it's essentially working. Is there a bank somewhere where you can source other people's, the difficulties they've had and what?
We have worked with Kelsey, as Gordon's mentioned. If you look at land use bylaws across the province, they're very consistent outside of the larger centers. Though how the individual communities are zoned could be different. If you look on our zoning map, there was sort of a large swath of land that was not existing as multifamily, that was rezoned as such. So the extent of how much these issues might show up in other communities could vary there.
Okay, I guess we can be leading edge. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, or? I'll just have somebody make a recommended motion then, if there's no more discussion. Councillor Hystad?
That council direct administration to prepare text amendments to the residential multifamily district R3 and the residential transition district RT. How's that, Jan Wing? Beat ya.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. So we will move into, thank you, Manager Shaw, for that today. We'll move into 4.1, correspondence and information. I'll just have somebody make a motion to accept this as information, please, if there's no questions.
I'd so move that we accept for information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And then we will begin with our roundtable discussion today with Councillor Harrison.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Barkley, and to my colleagues. We had our Parkland Foundation meeting last week, and our organizational meeting was part of that. And our current chair, Councillor Osterman from the county of Red Deer, she was nominated and was accepted as the chair for the upcoming year, 2023. We passed our final budget, and good to know that our requisition will not be changing at the foundation. Many activities on the weekend, bounced around quite a bit. It was a very busy weekend, lots going on, and the weather cooperated. And I just have to say, I bid on 2 trees and I ended up with 2 trees. So it was a great weekend, but for a great cause. It went to the Innisfil Food Bank. So that's all I had.
I saw you with your tree. Councillor Hystad?
No, this week I've got the village meeting this week, and that's pretty much it. It's been a busy last couple weeks. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bates?
Councillor Harrison, did you say you gave those trees to the food bank?
No, the money that I paid for
the
those
money.
trees goes to the food
Oh, no,
bank.
I thought maybe they were catering to beavers now. so-
No, I'm going to gift them though, Councillor Bates. Would you like one?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, so last week, of course, we did the half day of budget. And I was fortunate enough able to attend, I'm not going to be able to say this name, Ryan Stresniski, presentations to literally all school students. It was extremely well done, and kind of the theme of his talk was one door closes and another opens, and actually he talked probably for more than half of his presentation prior to the bus accident. But the kids that really paid attention really were given a heck of a presentation. Yeah, various town activities specifically on Saturday. And the Tree Festival wrap up on Sunday. Unfortunately, one of the Bates singers had quite a cold, so he couldn't sing quite as good as he normally would. And the third youngest sibling stepped in, and she was pretty good doing the little offsets on the Rudolph song. But this week, excuse me, I have MPC that was delayed one day, the Regional Waste Management Commission, and the holiday tree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Excuse me, yes, I was able to attend the final day of budget last Tuesday in person. Enjoyed the town's Christmas party on December, especially the long service awards. It's always good to see, I think, people recognized for the time that they serve. And also, so thanks to the staff who organized the event and the businesses that provided prizes. Saturday was a busy day in town, certainly all that was going on with festival, but also the Chamber's hometown Christmas celebration. So a huge market at the Legion, various activities and sponsorships within local businesses. I must say, lots of local businesses contacting the chamber in advance to say, we would really like to participate, so that was really good. And then the Percherons were in for sleigh rides. So, yeah, it was a busy day, and as Councillor Bates has said, this week's MPC is on Wednesday, so we'll be doing that this week. Thanks.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So last week, of course, did the budget half day. What's that? Okay, then did lunch with Glenn Fox, Equus, CEO Becker, and Manager Leith and I met with the Director of HSEMS. It was extremely positive meeting, and looking forward to further dialogue. He is going to get data to CEO Becker and Manager Leith in the near future with what's going on with Innisfail. There's also some discussions around how we can work together and maybe utilize some of our transport vehicles in with fitting that into their 10-point plan. So it's really a good meeting, and I was very happy that he came. Also went to see Ryan Strasnitsky last week. Councillor Bates said all there is to need to say about that. It was absolutely fantastic. I attended Minister Dreeshen's open house on Friday for a little bit, and participated in a short video with the Community Partners in Action last Friday. That's being sent in with their submission, the final four thing for the National Dementia Award. Then the weekend, my gosh, Innisfail, what a great Saturday that was. I mean, both places were absolutely packed with people. The parking lots, you couldn't find a parking spot, and I think it was absolutely fantastic having both markets carry on, and everybody I saw, they were going back and forth to both markets, and they absolutely loved the day. So it was a really good reflection on Innisfail. And of course, the town party the other night was excellent, and thanks to everybody for all you do, and it was a fun evening, and I know that takes a lot of work to organize. And this week I have our regional wastewater on Friday, so organizational meeting, and then our regular meeting, and of course the CP holiday train is on Saturday, so a reminder for everybody that wants to come at 1:15, I believe that is. So a good week. And we will move into upcoming events. I'll just have someone make a motion to accept this for information, please. Councillor Wing.
Yes, please, Mayor Barkley, I would make that motion.
All in favor? Perfect, unanimous. Okay, and then we will have a motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Harrison.
I'd so move that we move in camera.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?